Welcome to the Daughter Arise channel. My name is Yvonne, and this channel is all about bringing you content surrounding childhood sexual abuse. On this channel, I share my experiences, things that I've gone through, things that I found challenging or encouraging, in hopes of empowering and encouraging other survivors. I also share news stories on this channel and give commentary to those news stories, because even in this day and age in 2020, sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse, is really still an under talked about subject. But today is really kind of history making on my channel. I have been reaching out for a while, asking people if they want to share their experiences of going through childhood sexual abuse, in hopes of empowering and encouraging others to come forward or to just find their voice in their own experience. So I have a very special guest on with me today. Her name is Davina. She's founder of Dav Relates, and basically it is an Instagram page that she has set up to offer help whilst healing. She's on her own journey to healing, and rather than just doing this journey alone, she's empowering and encouraging other survivors to take the journey with her. So good morning, Davina.
Good morning.
I have said your name right there, haven't I?
Yes, you have, Davina.
Okay,
yes.
Because I know sometimes people say Davina, but I just want to make sure. So welcome to the channel. How are you this morning?
Excited, nervous, but thank you for inviting me.
No worries. I would just want to first of all say thank you so much for agreeing to come on this channel, to share your story. Tell us a bit about your childhood, your background, where you grew up.
I grew up in High Wycombe with my mum, my dad and my brother at home.
Where is that? Where is Haddicombe?
High Wycombe.
Oh, High Wycombe.
In Buckinghamshire.
Okay.
Yeah, in the country, so they say. So, yeah, I grew up at home with my mum, dad and brother. They're from a West Indian background. So childhood was okay. It was fun at times. And, it was, I would say, open, sometimes able to open and say what I need to say. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it was like the worst childhood at all, apart from the obvious reason. School in primary school was okay up until maybe the last year and the beginning of secondary school. I found that a bit of a struggle. I think that was more wanting attention, I would say, because I was battling with what had happened. I was a little bit confused. So I think I put my energy and everything out in that way, rather than, unfortunately, speaking up and saying what happened. It came out in other ways, I think. So school, although I was the loud, funny, having a laugh girl, there was this part of me that, I don't know, looking back now, was probably a little bit of attention seeking.
Tell us about your experience of going through childhood sexual abuse. How did it happen?
Weirdly enough, there was like a block where it happened. I forgot about it. I say forgot, but I think I put it like so way at the back. So when I was asked about when it happened and etc., I found it quite difficult to put an age on it. But all I can remember is, I believe it happened between the last year of primary school, like I said, into starting secondary school. So back in the days when we started secondary school, it was the age of 12. So I'm guessing it was between the 11 and 12 it started. How it started, my mum and dad worked extremely hard. So when it was the summer holidays or any sort of break, me and my brother were old enough to stay at home and look after ourselves. The person that did this to me is my mum's half brother. Okay. So he would pass by, and because we knew him, we would open the door and allow him in. And that's when it happened. It happened while in the summer holidays or some sort of holiday, and he would he would encourage or say to my brother to go upstairs or play downstairs, and that's when it would happen, basically.
How many times did it happen? Not that it matters whether it's once or many times. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't happen at all. But was it a one-off incident, or was it something that happened every time he came over?
It was something that happened the majority of the time he came over.
Okay.
Because he would ring first, and then he'll say he'll come over. And then he would come over, and that's when it would happen. So it got to the end of it got to near to the end of it where me and my brother were then hiding from him. So we would not answer the phone, then we would shut the door. But I used to make out to my brother that it was a game. Like, oh, he's coming. Oh, shut the door. Let's not answer. And we would hide behind the sofa when he knocked the door. It got to the point where that was what I was doing to stop it from happening. I say stop it from happening. It was really, I don't know if anybody else felt like this, but I was quite angry with myself because at that age, I kept thinking I should have known that it was the wrong thing to do. But he made me think it was okay. And that's what still sometimes to this day upsets me and makes me quite angry with myself, because he made me think it was all right. And I allowed it to happen and continued it. Not until I got to secondary school and they were doing sexual education, they were talking about it and it triggered. There was a time where I said I didn't really think about it, and that was my trigger point, I think. Hence the reason when it was secondary school, I found it quite difficult. I wanted male attention. I thought that was the correct attention. I wanted this, I thought it was to get attention from men and guys, I said, Shay, like boys from my age. And that was from the moment I thought, oh, I felt absolutely disgusted with myself.
You said something about, knowing it was wrong. I think that as a child, we can never, as survivors, as childhood victims of sexual abuse, be responsible for the actions of an adult. One of the things I would say is that they're very good at the perpetrator of the abuse is always very good at making you feel that you had a hand in their despicable, disgusting behavior. Having to carry that burden, how did that feel like for you? I mean, you talked about just feeling like you should have known it was wrong.
It made me feel dirty. It made me feel very disgusted with myself. Like I said, I was judging myself. I was scared to tell anybody because I was scared of being judged and not being believed. Then I was judging myself. The feeling of other people finding out was definitely one of my biggest fear.
Did the perpetrator of your abuse ever threaten you or tell you to keep it a secret or give you bribes or anything like that?
That was the thing. He never told me to not say anything.
Right.
That's why I feel disgusted with myself. That is one of the main reasons. He never said, don't say nothing. He never said, I'm going to do this to you if you do say something, or that's one of my main reasons why I, for a very long time, felt it very difficult to come to terms with. Because at some point, Davina, you must have known, like, this is just not right.
But you've just said that your first time you actually found out exactly what was going on in terms of what you experienced was when you had sex education.
Yeah, so
it's hard because that guilt and shame almost automatically comes straight away when you've gone through childhood sexual abuse. There is always something within you that feels that something is wrong. I knew something was wrong when something was happening to me, but I didn't have the words or the knowledge or the education to know what was wrong. I just knew something was definitely wrong. It didn't feel right. And I think it's something that a lot of survivors go through when they experience it, is this sense that they're doing something wrong, that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I exactly felt like exactly what you said. It felt like I was doing something wrong. I just couldn't explain it or express it to somebody else.
Yeah.
I couldn't. And yeah, like exactly how you said it there is exactly how I felt, but I've never been able to really put it into words like that, really.
It took a long time for me to be able to articulate my experience, because even though we may not know about sex or that we're being abused, in that moment when it's happening, we know something is wrong. And because we don't have that knowledge or education, immediately we think we are the ones that are doing something wrong.
Yeah. It got to, I would say, I was 15, 16 years old, and I was 16 when I fell pregnant. And I fell pregnant at an early age. And I think it was down to me being so exposed to sex at a young age, or
Yeah.
sexual activity, shall I say. Because with the person that did this to me, it was never sex. It was more fondling, and etc. So, or getting me to do something. So I think me having my daughter at such a young age was a contribution to me being so open, exposed to it at an early age. And I wanted that love and affection from a male figure because I thought it was the only way to get that love and affection because of what I had been exposed to.
Just to clarify, when you had your first child at 16, this was with a boyfriend?
A boyfriend at the time.
Okay. So, couple of things I want to ask you in terms of your experience. How many years was this going on over with the abuse?
So I can remember this one occasion of a summer holiday, and I think this is because it happened between me leaving primary school and that summer holiday. That is the one time I can really remember, and then going on to secondary school. So
you can't quite remember how many years these incidents happened over, but you can clearly remember some of them.
Exactly. And that's why I was so reluctant to say something, because I couldn't put dates and times, and I just couldn't put the dates and times to it. So I was just assuming, no one's going to believe me, because they're going to ask those questions. When did it happen? How many times did it happen? And I couldn't exactly remember how many times it happened and when it happened. But there was this one time I can remember it happened. So I had to go off that one time it happened.
Yeah.
Hence the reason when I did speak up about it, and it went to court, I had to speak about that one occasion. I couldn't speak about the other occasions because I couldn't remember everything.
Okay.
So it was kind of just based on that certain situation.
So before we go into how you went to court and everything, whilst you were at home, did any of your family members notice a change in your behaviour or your demeanour?
No. I hid that so well, and I carried on as normal. Even now, when that my mum and dad know, they can't recall a time of them saying, "Oh, that's why you were this. That's why you acted like that." No, my character's quite bubbly, and I'm always laughing, or I'm always messing about. So I was able to cover maybe that up a little bit with my personality.
When was the turning point when you spoke out or decided to say something about what had happened to you?
I had to tell my two partners I've had. So the father of my first child, I told him, because obviously my libido, sexual activity was just like, it was when I was drunk, or if I had a bit of drink. There were only certain occasions where I would feel in the mood to do anything like that. So it got to the point where I had to explain to him, this has happened, this is the way I am, the reason why I am the way I am towards this scenario. And he understood. And then I had to tell my husband as well, when he first came here from the West Indies to live, because this was the first time how we're living together. So the other times it was when I was going over to St. Vincent to visit him, and obviously holiday, so you're all excited, etc. But obviously now he's living here, my whole mood and my libido is different. So I had to then explain to him the reason. And he was very, very supportive. But me speaking out as such, it was my mum called me one day to explain a situation that happened with one of her close friends, that her daughter had spoken out. And she said, Davina, I don't know what I'll do if that was you. And Yvonne, I couldn't talk. I was trying to continue the conversation so hard,
oh gosh,
just so my mum wouldn't pick up that I had stopped talking.
Yeah.
I found the conversation awkward or hard. No words were coming out. I couldn't continue the conversation. So she, was talking down the phone, Dav, have you got something to tell me? And that's when I told her. Her first reaction was she put the phone down on me.
Oh, wow. How did that feel in that moment?
Absolutely. In a way, it kind of clarified exactly my fear. I was scared nobody was going to believe me.
Yeah.
And I felt disgusted with myself. I felt like they were going to think I was nasty. Or if they did believe, they were automatically going to think, look at you, you're nasty. How did you make this happen? You must have enjoyed it. You must have wanted to do it. That was the words that were going round and round. I rang my aunt straight away and explained to her what had happened in the conversation. And she said, ring your mum back and see what she thinks. I didn't get a chance to ring my mum back. She rang me and she said, why didn't you tell me? And I said, I was scared. I didn't know how do I tell you that? I was scared that you wouldn't believe. And plus, don't like to call him uncle, but
yeah,
my mum's brother he is that person that would mess about and find everything funny. So people would be like, really? Like, he did that kind of thing? They might have found it quite difficult to believe. So she said, I put the phone down because I am so angry and so shocked that this has happened to you and I didn't know. And I didn't pick up on it. She said, don't ever think that I would not believe you, Dav. I'm so upset you didn't say something from the beginning.
Oh.
So I was believed by my mum straight away, without a doubt. And she was so angry. She wanted to go straight for him. And I begged her and I begged her and I begged her, please do not. I don't want to take it further. Just leave it as it is. Like, it's taken me a lot to even say this to you. So I don't want to say anything. She rang my brother straight away.
Oh, gosh. What was that like?
My brother was so angry. We're only 18 months apart, so we have had our falling outs, but we are close. Like, if anything's to happen to any of us, like, we are there in a shot. So my mum told me, your brother told me, he put the phone down after my mum, then he rang back my mum and said, it all makes sense, Mum. He used to send me upstairs or send me downstairs to say, go and play.
Oh.
That broke my heart, because then that was a trigger point for my brother that he then has to live with, that why didn't I know? Why couldn't I pick it up? And so that really upset me. The thing that really pushed me to push it further was this man would sometimes out of the blue just turn up at my mum's house.
Yeah.
He turned up at this occasion after now I've spoken to my mum, told my mum. So he just turned up and she rang me, she goes, I'm at the police station. I said, what? She said, he turned up at the house. I told him, you know what you've done to Dav. And his exact words were, it's all in her mind.
Yeah.
What's in her mind? Because I didn't tell you what she'd told me. So what's and apparently my mum's husband had to literally hold her back and say,
yeah,
police station. So she went down to the police station and reported it. And then that's where they said, would your daughter mind coming down here and making an official statement about what's happened to her?
I think it's so amazing the way that your mum has stood behind you. It just goes to show, like, all those fears that you had, which is very real for victims of childhood sexual abuse. Will I be believed? You know, was I part of this? You know, did I encourage the person? All these kind of internal fears and things that sometimes we build up in ourselves. And your mum believed you. You know, your story is very, very unique, because I don't know anybody, apart probably from one person, were believed by their mum or by their parent. Because, you know, I've been working with survivors for the last 10 years. I've, you know, listened to many countless stories, and obviously there's my own. And I just think it's amazing and wonderful that your mum and your brother stood behind you. And when you mentioned about your brother saying, now that all makes sense.
Yeah.
I had a similar thing with my brother. There was a time when, one time my dad was taking me out of the house, because he used to take me over to my grand's house to abuse me, my mum's house.
Okay.
And I used to have to hide under the stairs in the living room. And one time I was, because he'd wake me out my bed like nearly like 10, 11, 12 at night to take me
Okay.
out to go and abuse me at my grand's house. And one time I was hiding under the
Wow.
stairs, and my brother came downstairs unexpectedly to get a drink of water or something. And as he was going back up the stairs, in between the stairs, there's gaps so you can see.
Yes.
And he saw me under there and he said to me, "Yvonne, what are you doing under there?" And I was about 10 or 11 and I couldn't even say anything. But later on, years later, he said to me, he remembered me being under the stairs. He remembered that occasion. And it's funny
Yeah.
that they remember those things. They don't
It is.
understand it at the time, but then they remember.
So yeah, my mum called me and she said, "I'm at the police station. Could you come down and make an official statement? They don't want to rush you. They don't want to pressure you. But because I've come down and I want to put an injunction out on him so he's not allowed around us, etc., they said they would like you to come and do this because it would help the situation. It could help." It took me, I think my mum called me back in half an hour and said, "What are you thinking?" I just went, "Come and get me.
Oh.
Just come and get me." Because I think at that stage, it was now affecting my mum. It was now going to affect my brother. It was now going to affect my dad. My mum and dad are separated by then, by these times. So the fact that my dad would see him and still go, "Hi, you're right," that annoyed me. My poor dad would be so upset with me that I still allowed him to continue to say hello to this guy, knowing he's done this. So it all just started coming to me. I thought, no, I've got to put an end to all of this.
With your dad, did he also know at the same time as your mum? Did she tell him? Because you mentioned she told you.
He didn't tell him. I had to tell him. And I got my brother and my half sister on my dad's side. I said, "I need you to. I've got to go and tell Dad, and I need you to by my side." So we went to my dad's house. I told him, and he broke down. He absolutely cried. He squeezed me so much, like just so upset about it, and it just breaks my heart that yes, I have spoken out about it, but now that's added a stress to my mum and dad that they've had to go through and have on their in their thoughts.
Did you feel some type of guilt about that? Like you brought that on them?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Because of the way they were I could see they were hurt. And because I was begging them not to do anything to him, they couldn't let their anger and frustration, and they just couldn't ask them and force them to keep it in their head like I had done for years. And that is what really did it upset me. So my dad, again, believed me and was just, again, upset that I didn't tell him any sooner. But I needed my sister and my brother there to kind of help me, to support me as well, to say it.
You have a very supportive family, and I know it must have been so difficult for you to process everything that had happened, and then tell your family and see their reactions as well. So you mentioned now that you asked your mum to come and get you to go to the police station. What was that like?
Very, very scary. At that point, I thought it was the most scariest time ever, but it wasn't. At that point, I thought it was the most scariest thing. My mum came and got me. I had to go through to the police. Obviously, they took me in for the interview. And obviously, I had to relive everything. I was explaining to people, this is what's happened to me. I was sexually abused by my half-uncle. That was it. I've never had to go into it in depth the way I went into it that day. And that was really, really difficult because they asked me everything. What he had done, how, where, at what point, did this happen when that happened, did that happen when this happened? And at that point, when I was younger, I didn't know about certain things that men bits and pieces could do, So now I'm being asked this at an adult age. I was like, oh my goodness, how could I not notice that this was just wrong? So yeah, I'd done the statement and they said, we're going to interview him. We're going to bring him in. And I said, he's going to deny it. He's going to deny every single thing. They called me back in again to go over my, I think it was my after, how I felt after I'd done the statement, just another statement of how I felt. And they said, just to let you know, he's denied it. I said, I know he has.
Yeah, no surprise there.
No, I know he would have denied it straight up. And they said, oh, he's a bit of a character, isn't he?
Mm.
And she said, the lady said, I don't believe a word he's saying. And she said, I'm not meant to tell you that, but I do not believe a word he's saying. I said, okay. That again made me feel a bit like, okay.
Did they offer you counselling or like victim support after you had initially opened up about your experiences?
I had counselling before all of this was actually out in the open.
So you had support in place before?
Yeah, but this was because I was having issues with my home stuff at home, like being stressed, depressed, low in myself, having issues with, my partner at the time. And in my counselling therapy, before all of this came out, I was able to get the reason why I was feeling the way I was. And that was because there and then I'd said what had happened. And the counsellor said, that's why you are the way you are. That's why you're feeling this way towards this person. That's why you're feeling your way towards yourself, etc., etc. So in my counselling therapies, that's where I found out that it really sunk in that due to my sexual abuse, that's the reason why I have been going through what I've been going through up until then.
Did it feel like pieces of the puzzle kind of came together? Because I had a similar experience after I had my first mental breakdown at 22, because I spent loads of years just trying to run from my issue. And when I started psychotherapy and started to understand a bit about, the things I was doing and how it was connected to my abuse, it felt like for the first time I had pieces of a puzzle, that things started to kind of make sense.
Yeah,
like
it
that.
did. It started making sense without a doubt. It made sense to why I was the way I was with my children. Why I didn't want them to be sleeping out anywhere at friend's house.
Yeah.
I was really protective of like, okay, you've given Uncle a hug now, sit down.
Yeah.
Like, stop like with the whole huggy. Not until I spoke out about my sexual abuse, like social media.
Yeah.
Male friends and family were like, I know why you are the way you are now. Like, even now they'll be like, okay, quick hug, sit down, you there. And I can't deal with like my daughters or my son like sat on laps and stuff like that. My son's not going to do it now because he's 13, but when they like, I couldn't handle it. I just was like, found it really uncomfortable.
I just wanted to ask you one other quick question about the interview, actually. Was your mum in the room while you were going through all the details? Okay. So you were just in the room by yourself?
I was in the room by myself, but we'll come back to my mother
Yeah.
finding out things that I could, I will get to that.
Okay. So now with the interview then, because you said you're going to mention about your mum, so we'll come along to that. So you've done the interviews, they've spoken to the perpetrator of your abuse. So what happened from that point onwards? So was he charged? Was a court date set? Tell us a little bit about what happens next.
Okay, so it did go to court. I had to go up first and speak, which was the most, I said, I thought that going to the police station was the hardest thing. No, court was the most hardest thing I think I've ever done.
How long was the process between him being charged to it then going to court? How many, was it months, weeks, years?
I think it was about a year.
Okay.
I think it was definitely about a year between the moment I said and, it all going to court. I spoke first. Again, I had to go through every single tiny detail of what happened, where, when, etc. My brother was called in the afternoon to speak. My mum was also called that day. The Thursday, he was called to speak. And then Friday, that's when they came to the decision. Victim support gave me a call and they said, just to let you know, we'll find out what's happening today. This was the Thursday, sorry. So they rang me that evening and said he's been found guilty.
How did that feel?
It's amazing. It was like, I can't believe this is all over. So I thought. First thing I asked her was, how many people in the jury believed me? My main thing was being believed. That's
Yeah.
all I wanted to know. And she said, do you really want to know? I said, yes, I want to know. She goes, every single person believed you.
Wow.
And that, I burst into tears, absolutely burst into tears, because as any victim that's been through this, you just want to be believed.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I was second guessing myself that if this really happened, it got to that point, because he was then saying it didn't happen. And I was like, oh my God, like it was getting too much. It was like, okay, this man's making me feel like, how is this all going through my mind? Like, is this things I'm making up? But to be told that, yeah, every single person believed, even his person that was stood in for him to speak on his behalf, I realised that he only asked me 3 questions. And I was like, why has he only asked me 3 questions? Is that because he doesn't believe me? That is why I said he only asked me 3 questions, because when I came out, I went into another little room where all my family were like supporting, and I burst into tears. I said, they don't believe me. He only asked me 3 questions, not looking at it on the positive side that he asked me 3 questions because there was nothing else to really ask. That same day, she said, he's being sentenced tomorrow, which is the Friday. I said, wow. She said, yeah. They said they don't want to put him out there, back out, to then call him back to say, you're being sentenced.
Yeah.
We're going to sentence him tomorrow. You're more than welcome to come, but there won't be a screen up this time, because I had a screen up when I was talking. So if you come, you will see him. I said, I'm going to be there. And I turned up with my mum and my husband. We sat there. It took me a while to really look at him and, look him in the eye. They read him his, like, this is the bit where my mother was a bit, So they said, this is what you've done. So they read out every single thing I had told them that he did to me. So from the beginning, from the moment I heard what they were telling me, I was like, Mum, put your hands over your ears. I don't want you to hear this. And I told my husband the same thing. My mum done this. I looked at her and I was like, Mum, I don't want you to hear it. She just gave me like a bad. But as he was saying it, she stared him in his eyes and did not take her eyes off, not once.
And that's your mum's brother?
Half brother.
Half brother.
On the father's side. And yeah, that is the point where when they said, I sentence you to 6 years, that is the time when I looked up at him in his eyes, and they turned him around and I watched him walk out. And that was okay, that's done. I can't believe he's actually been gone. But obviously in this country, you do half, don't you?
Yeah, it's not like America where, if they say to you, you're going to do it sometime, you're going to do that time. There's no early release. But, do you know what, Davina? Just listening to you talk and listening to your story, it's just amazing to me. Your bravery and your courage. And I can't even imagine how tough that court case must have been for you. I mean, it was over a period of 5 days, was it? Or over?
I think it was over a period of 4 days.
Yeah, to get up every day to go to court, to have
every single day
go into that environment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I think sometimes I still have to pinch myself to know that I actually did that and I've gone through it. When people say, like you've just said, oh, you're this and you're that, and I'm like, I don't feel it's very hard for me to accept and take all of that in. So yeah, I find it quite difficult. But yeah, I thought that was it. He's been sent away. I can get on with my life. No.
That's when the coping with the coming to terms with everything, dealing with the trauma, and everything else starts to kick in.
I had stopped therapy by then as well. And it got to the point where I was now thinking, oh my God, he's going to be out in 3 years. Where is he going to live? What's he going to do? He's still going to be here. I was now thinking, of what is going to happen when he gets released. So that's when I thought, no, Dav, you need to go back into therapy. And that's where I was in. And it finishes at the end of this month. So I've been doing group therapy for the past 2.5 years.
Yeah.
He was released in April.
Yeah.
Just gone. And yeah, I stayed in, they extended my therapy because they wanted me to have the therapy in the period of him leaving prison. Yeah. And just after, so he's been out of prison. Oh no, he's been out of prison a year now. That's gone fast. He's been out of prison a year. And within that year, he was released in April, and in June, he was seen down the road, less than a 30-second bike ride from my home. And victim support had given out, they do ask you, when he gets released, can you please give the areas you do not want him to go to, children's school areas, so he knows a list of people that you don't want him to approach, so he knows. He broke every one of those. He broke every one. So I didn't report the first one because, again, I didn't have evidence. So me going to the police and going, oh, we've seen him here and he's done, they might have just thought, okay, but that's your word against, like, we don't know. So the following week, I thought, he's not going to be stupid, is he? To be there again. Oh yeah, he was. I pulled up my car and I saw him and I saw a friend. I said, could you go and record him with my phone? Just so I've got something to go to the police with. But he was acting a bit all cocky. So I walked towards him. I said, you are not supposed to be in this area. You fully well know, you're not allowed to be here. And he went, oh, hello. I called the police straight away. I said, I'm not having this.
Yeah.
They gave him a warning.
Yeah.
And then the second time he approached my brother and called out to him. Again, they gave him a warning.
He's got some gall, isn't he?
Just a bit. So now I think he's been given a few things. He gets checked up upon, I think, once a week. He's now been put on another program.
Has he been put on a sex offenders register?
Yes, he has been.
Okay.
The only thing I've not been able to really understand is he's been able to go back in the area that he lived before. Yeah. And I've always been told that they're not supposed to go back in the area that they lived before. As long as I've got to the stage now where if I see him, I can walk straight past him. Whereas before I would freeze. I could be in town 2 minutes, and if I see him, I would freeze, panic, and I would leave and go home. Now I could see him and I would walk, because I'm not allowing him to still continue to have that sort of hold over me.
So in terms of the aftermath of going through childhood sexual abuse, what were some of the difficult things that was left for you in the aftermath? So the court case is now finished, and you recognise that this now is where the real journey starts. What were some of the things that really affected you in the aftermath of your experience?
The fact that I had to tell my children what happened at that point.
Okay. How old were your children?
How old were they?
Yeah, when you told them.
15, 9, I think 10, and so I've got 4 children, so I'm trying to so I told the older 2. It was really difficult, but then they realised, oh Mum, that's why you don't like us sleeping out. And I was like, yes, that's why you ask 101 questions when we do come back from when we have slept out. Yes. Like, it all made sense to them. So telling my children definitely would be one of the hardest things I've had to deal with, and explaining to them, now that people know, what are they thinking? That was the other thing that I found really difficult to deal with. And the fact that people would be like, okay, it's done now, you're all right. I wasn't all right. And that was the other part that I found quite difficult. I felt like I had to now show people that it's over now, I'm all right. I felt like I had to show that I was okay, and it got a little bit too much for me, hence the reason why I had to go back to therapy. It's
not as simple as you're just all right. I've always explained it as it's a lifelong journey, because there's different things that you have to come to terms with. So internally, personally, what were some of your inner challenges in the aftermath of sexual abuse? Like, for instance, for myself, I struggled with depression and dysfunctional behaviour, low self-esteem, confidence, that type of thing. If you don't mind sharing, what were some of your challenges?
Depression was one of them. but I didn't know I was depressed. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I just thought it took me a long time to acknowledge and accept the fact that I was going through depression. I was just like, well, I'm not going crazy, so what? I'm not depressed. Because there was that horrible thing of stereotype, like, oh, you're not crazy. Like in the West Indian background as well. Oh, you're crazy. No, you don't have to be going like completely mad in order to say that you're depressed. Or I only realised I was suffering from anxiety about a year and a half ago. My chest was getting really tight and I couldn't explain it and I didn't know what it was. So depression, anxiety, being accepted in friendship groups and relationships, I found really difficult.
Why?
Because I think I grew up having to think I had to prove myself. So whatever friendship I had, if I valued our friendship so highly, found it difficult to think that you would value our friendship or relationship in the same way.
Yeah.
So I would find it really difficult with friendships and relationships. But the reason why that changed is after I'd done my social media and I spoke out about it on social media about like mental health and depression and anxiety, etc., and what I've been through.
Yeah.
I'd done a little talk in my community. My mum, a few of her friends, my friends and family, and a few people that I didn't know, they came to listen to my story.
Yeah.
And that's where my friends and family kind of found out about how I felt about friendships and how difficult I found it with relationships, being accepted. And I find it difficult to show people sympathy. I don't know why.
Do you think it was you found it hard to show yourself sympathy?
Yeah, possibly. Because where I should have shown myself sympathy,
Yeah.
I was looking at myself as disgusted and angry. So if anybody is going through something, I find it quite difficult. So when my friends say, "No, Dav, you're fine. You show us sympathy," but me, I'm like, like, what's your problem? And I'm like, oh, don't be so horrible, Dav. Like they're obviously going through something, but sometimes I do find it quite difficult to show them sympathy.
I struggled with being hard on myself, too hard on myself about everything. Like,
yes,
who's standing over you with a whip, Yvonne? You are the only one standing over yourself with a whip, beating yourself and being hard on yourself about everything. Give yourself a break. You know, that was my thing, being too hard on myself about stuff.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's one of my problems as well. I'm always thinking I've got to do better. And
yeah.
why have I not achieved this yet? I should have achieved this by now.
Yeah.
And I've had so many different jobs and I was like, where am I going with my life? I'm getting angry now. But the last year, I would say I've definitely felt a little bit more comfortable within myself and felt like I'm living my purpose, shall I say.
Yes. Living in your purpose.
Yeah.
And in terms of relationships as well, because you mentioned about showing sympathy, did you struggle with trust? Did you have trust issues in relationships as well?
Yeah, I did. Trust issues, but then I would still go back. But no, those trust issues were a problem. Even if they did do something for me to not trust them again, I would still go back because of that male attention and just accepting. I think that was quite difficult.
I think for me, one of the reasons I struggled with, even if I had trust issues with people, was asserting my authority in a situation, asserting boundaries. So even if people did things to me that broke my trust, like in the earlier years, I could never quite cut them off.
Me either.
So for me, I had to build myself up, obviously through therapy, through my faith, build myself up, and then it got to a point where I could cut people off. Not just automatically. Sometimes it'd be this cut off, like seeing them, then cutting off phone contact, like literally doing it bit by bit.
I would say I find it more difficult actually breaking off a friendship or a relationship. They've got to do me something really, really bad for me to cut myself off from them. I'm really outspoken as well, so I don't hide anything. Like
Yeah.
if I'm going through any problems, I'm like, guess what's happening to me today? This is
Yeah.
happening, and and I would just say, if me and my husband are going through something, I'm like, this is what's happened. I'm not pretending to you guys out here. This is what's happening. I'm not his friend today. Like, and that's what people say they like about us, because we are just like, we're not going to pretend to the world that we're this perfect couple, because we're not. And we're going to,
Definitely.
yeah. So sometimes some of my friends are like, Dav, like, you talk too much. I'm like, I'm not talking too much. It's just that I want to say it, and I want it to come from my mouth so nobody else can say, I
Yeah.
heard Dav done this and I heard she done that.
Yeah.
Well, no, Dav said she did it. So that's my way. And I think from what happened to me, I think that's why I speak so much, or tell whatever story I have to say. And I'm quite outspoken about it, because I've had to go so many years not saying that one thing. So now I feel like I have to keep clarifying the reason why I've done something, the reason why I've said something. So it's not that I talk my business, it's just that I feel like I need to put it out there. And I always think, even if I can help one person by me sharing an experience with a friendship or a relationship, I'm happy.
Yeah. That's powerful. And I think one of the most powerful things somebody who's gone through what we've gone through can do is find their voice. And when you find it, it's like, you just want to you just want to share it. You just want other people to find it as well, because we both know what it's like living in that silent prison,
Yeah.
of living with all these different things that you come up with because of your experience. So, in terms of your family, I know you talked about your journey of 2.5 years going through group therapy and how helpful that has been to, getting you to this point. How has your family been able to move past this devastating betrayal, with this family member and going through the court case and everything else? What has their healing process been like? And what has it been like for you guys as a family to move past?
Okay, so my mum sought therapy as well. She told me, because she found it really difficult. She felt guilty, and she didn't know how to maybe speak to me about it, or if I worried about speaking to her about it, how was she going to approach the situation? So she did say she's had to seek therapy. My dad, ever since I've told him, the only time we've ever spoken about it is the time I told him, when he's going to court, how long he got, and now he's out of prison. Nothing in between. But I'm comfortable with that, because I know my dad's personality. I know he's not a man of talking. So I'm happy and I'm comfortable with that. My brother, he's the type that you can't talk to him. If you talk to him about it, he gets angry. It's best not to say anything. If we are in a discussion about it, he will have his say. As a family, I think the best way we've dealt with it is me speaking out on social media about it, I think. And then they've then called, or they've put that support in to say, really proud of you, well done, Dav, etc., etc. So yeah, family and friends wise, I can not complain. They've been a great, great support.
Have you all been able to move past it as a family then? Have like family occasions and do different things?
Oh yeah, we haven't allowed it to get to us. We all got, because he was a half brother of my mum's, he wasn't really in the family as such. He would just turn up at family barbecues, or he would just turn up out of the blue. So it's not as if he was at every family function, always around. We still get together, we still have a laugh, we still mess about. It's not been a problem. If anything, I do believe it's brought us a little bit closer. Definitely a little bit closer, because we're all now able to understand each other a little bit more as well.
What's the biggest thing you've taken away from your experience of going through childhood sexual abuse?
The biggest thing I've taken away, don't underestimate yourself. I for years underestimated myself, that I couldn't talk about it, and I wouldn't be able to talk about it to anyone else. I wouldn't be able to go to court. I wouldn't be able to see him again after court, and underestimating myself. It takes a lot for me to praise myself. Say, even when other people praise me, I'm like, silly, don't be silly. I can't really take it. So yeah, I would say that's definitely something I've worked on and got better at.
Oh, that's amazing, amazing to hear. What encouragement would you give to somebody who's listening to this video, who is not ever told anybody, who's never spoken out? What would you like to say to them?
I would love to say to them, even if you can't tell somebody you know, at least go to therapy and speak to somebody you don't know. I promise you it's easier. And once you've got that off your chest, speaking to somebody that you don't know, I don't know what it is, but something inside triggers you to maybe start saying other things to someone else. So I would definitely encourage you to get therapy. Don't do it on your own. You honestly, it's hard if you do it on your own. One of the things I wish I did was speak up a lot earlier than what I did, because I think I would have led a different life. No, not led a different life, would have made different choices.
Yeah, that's powerful. So what does the future hold for Davina of Dav Relates now?
So, like I said, my confidence gets a hold of me every time. So today I'll be like, yeah, I could do this. And then tomorrow I can't post that.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I can't do that. So what I would love to do is get the younger generation. When I say younger, I mean like a younger generation and an older generation that haven't been able to really speak about it, or if they really want to open up about it, they can just get them together so they can talk about, if you don't say something, this is what could happen because this is what I'm going through. And then the younger generation with, or maybe some of them might say, I've been through it, so please could you say something, even if it's now, like, or seek therapy. Because I found a lot of elder generation, when I did speak out about it, so many of the older generation contacted me and said, Dav, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because I can't say anything, or I have said something and my mum didn't believe me, my dad didn't believe me, or my family didn't believe me. So thank you so much, because it feels like you've said it for me, even though I haven't been able to open my mouth and say it myself. And so I was really overwhelmed by the response I got. So I had this gush of confidence, like I said, I really want to help everyone and I'm so excited. And it got to me, I was like, okay, so how am I going to really do this?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would really love to do, is talk a lot more out about it. Anyone who wants to talk to me, give me a call. I'm not a counsellor, but I would love to just, listen in. Like I put a post out last week, the one that I put out last week.
Yes, I saw that.
A friend got in contact from primary school and said, please, can you talk to my daughter?
Yeah.
She would love to talk to you. And we walked and walked, and she spoke to me about her experience.
Yeah.
And she said, I can't talk to my mum, but I feel really comfortable talking to you. Yeah. Oh my goodness, it made me feel so honestly, it was like, to know that one post I put out there, I was able to help one person. Yeah. I was happy.
I just want to thank you so much. What you shared today, I don't think you realise how big this is. No one really is willing to, even on audio, talk like you've talked, and you've on camera and talked about your experience so openly and so honestly. And there's many things that I'm going to reflect on from our conversation, many things that I'm going to take away. But one of the things about your court case is that there is hope for those out there, because one of the biggest things, I didn't get justice with mine. My case came up in 1989, and unfortunately, because of the legal framework and because of, my birth family helping my dad to get rid of evidence, I never got no justice. And one of the things that was always frustrating for me over the years of me speaking out and being a voice for people was that a lot of people have gone to court, those that have been brave enough to go to the police and go to court, never get any justice, because it's always a your word against my word type of scenario that plays out in court. And in listening to your story, it gives me hope. And I know it will give other people hope who think that to go to the police, you're going to have exact dates, you're going to have physical evidence, because we know that the injuries that somebody that has gone through childhood sexual abuse definitely suffers is psychological injuries. yeah,
most definitely.
which develop over time. So the fact that you've been able to go to court and you didn't have to have all this physical evidence and stuff like that is going to be so powerful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And sharing so openly your struggles with coming to a realization that this experience wasn't your fault, because for a long time you thought as a child you should have known better, when in fact it had nothing to do with you.
No.
You know, it
And
had
that's
nothing to do with you.
no. One of the going back to that I've got to court and I was able, he was convicted, etc. That was also another problem I had. I felt guilty that there were other people that had gone through this, gone to court and didn't get the justice.
Yeah.
And that was one of my other things. I know a few people that have done this and they didn't quite get. So I used to feel really guilty about sharing my story sometimes, because I was like, Dad, why are you still complaining and moaning? This person has gone through all of this and they didn't even get the justice. So I used to feel quite guilty. Hence the reason why sometimes I never used to talk about it.
But you know what? You have nothing to feel guilty of. As I said, I've never got worldly justice for what my father did to me. And for years I was so angry, so angry that he was able to get away with what he did. 5 years of my life this man destroyed. But as I said, listening to your story, it gives me hope. I don't think, when I hear your story of going to court or even, I don't think, well, that's not fair, or, I just feel hopeful. I feel hopeful for other people who may be coming after me, other victims and survivors who are coming after me, younger ones, older ones, who are going to try and do this process, that, things are changing.
Yeah.
I can say, well, I know somebody, that has had, I know people that haven't, because I've supported people who have gone through the court process. They didn't get a positive outcome, but I actually do know somebody that they did get a positive outcome. And, I know about 2 or 3, no more than 5 people, and that's sad, that have had a positive process with the court experience and going to the police. It just fills me with so much hope.
And I hope I do encourage, even if it's one more person, to seek or even speak out, because it is a struggle. I'm not going to lie and say it was easy. It was absolutely difficult. It was hard, but I'm so happy that I did it, without a doubt.
Well, thank you so much. So where can people actually reach you?
Dav Relates on Instagram and also on Facebook. You can Dav Relates on Facebook as well.
Fantastic. So what I will do is that I will post the links to Davina's Dav Relates pages in the description box below. If you want to reach out to her, feel free to do so. I shall see you guys on the next video.
Thank you for having me.